Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I am your host, Katie Richardson, here with a good friend and an incredible entrepreneur who is doing amazing things. He just told me he would love to talk about lead generation. He's also an expert on writing your book. If that story has been in you and you've wanted and tried to get it out into the world, this is the episode for you today, because I'm talking to Rob Kosberg. And Rob is a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author and the founder of Bestseller Publishing. Rob's Publish, Promote, Profit book and system have been used by tens of thousands of authors in dozens of countries. Simply put, Rob helps entrepreneurs become the go-to authority in their market by writing, launching, and profiting with the best-selling book. Rob, welcome to the show.
What a great intro. It's almost as though that was written by me and my team.
I have consistently noticed that, Rob. You guys are great at communicating what you do in a really, really succinct and dialed way. I appreciate that. And I want people to get to know you, Rob, the human being. And so tell us the story of an experience that has really formed and shaped how you view the world today.
Wow. Okay. We'll start heavy right out of the gate, huh?
Go for it.
I would probably say from a business perspective, coming through the last recession, the Great Recession, as it was coined in 2007, 2008, has certainly shaped my perspective and probably left a few scars and some emotional damage, if you will. I was in real estate at the time. I had been in real estate for a long time, had 3 really successful real estate related companies. And they went from doing 100 million a year in transactions to 0 and not to 50 million. We could have made 50 million work.
Sure.
but 0. I mean, we could not close. Yeah, we couldn't close a deal.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
look, it was a great blessing in disguise, although it was a very, very painful blessing. My company, Bestseller Publishing, had its roots there, not because I started a publishing company right at that time, but because I wrote a book on the advice of a couple of mentors. And that book exploded my new business in 2009, 10, and 11, which you may remember was still like in the midst of the recession, and stock market was still way down, and there was still a lot of pain, but my business was kind of flying. And so people started coming to me, asking me what I'm doing, how my business is growing when everybody's is still kind of floundering. And, it was my book that was doing it, generating leads, cementing me as an authority in the space, et cetera. And people just started asking me, could I help them with their book? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see. Let's try. And that's how Bestseller Publishing started. Now it's 11 years ago. But I don't want to give you too many long run-on sentences in a row. It was just it's just a really challenging time. I went from having a lot of money and net worth and, to a situation where, I had bill collectors and, foreclosure notices. I had millions of dollars in real estate that was flipped upside down. And that, it humbled me, in good ways, very, very good ways. I look back on that time as a very positive experience in my life, because I grew as a person. I grew as an individual, and obviously I came out of it. At the same time, it's hard not to see some of the similarities of what we're entering right now. Hopefully it's not going to be the same, but it's hard not to see some of the similarities. And I hope I've learned enough to make a few better decisions than I did at that time. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I can't even imagine the amount of weight and pressure that's on your shoulders. You have a wife, you have kids, you have clients and customers, you have team members. I mean, there's so much responsibility that as an entrepreneur, we carry that on our shoulders. And then to not have the resources to continue to move forward, it's absolutely devastating. And leaves scars, 100%.
It did.
And I mean, you pulled your way out of that, right?
Yeah.
By building and creating this business that was primarily formed around, first you wrote a book. Can
Yeah.
you even just tell us, like, I can only imagine how much your mind was attacking you as you were trying to be an expert in
Oh,
real
yeah.
estate and your business was crashing.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you stay focused? How did you even navigate
Desperation.
that time?
Desperation, Katie. I mean, yeah, you know, it's one of those situations. I mean, as I look back on it now, I'm a spiritual person. And so, you know, I mean, if it wasn't for my spiritual foundation, my relationship with God, I don't know what would have come out of that time. I mean, it certainly kept me sane and kept me
Mhm.
moving forward. But my back was up against a wall.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the things that I was doing, like in the writing of the book, because I made so many mistakes in that. Like I wrote a really big check to a ghostwriter, and that was a complete failure, which actually helped me a lot
Mhm.
later, because that a lot of people came to me with kind of the same problems working with ghostwriters, and so we were able to
Okay.
create a system to resolve those problems. But I didn't know that at the time, right? I didn't know where
Sure.
I was going. All I was doing was putting one foot in front of the next, and
Mhm.
trying to get through that time. And so it was
Mhm.
desperation. It was, my back was up against the wall. And like you said, I've been married for a long time. I have 3 boys. They were all in private school at that time. And, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to
Yeah.
like keep the lights on,
Right.
and move forward. So it was painful, but you know, we don't learn, we don't grow through success. I mean, we really don't. I hate to say that,
Amen.
maybe a
I
little,
know.
but we grow through adversity. We grow through
Yeah.
pain. We grow through difficulty, and we hate that, but that's life, man.
And what's so interesting is we're wired for growth. We want it. And then
Yeah.
when that opposition comes, we're like, get out of here. I don't
Yeah.
want you. I want
Yeah.
growth. I want progress. It's interesting to hear you reflect on that experience and the really important lessons that you learned. It's
Yeah.
reminding me of a time in my career when I had a significant failure that felt
Mm.
totally devastating. And the thing my husband said to me in that moment was, Katie, you didn't fail. You now have the perfect blueprint to success.
Right.
And it sounds like those experiences that you had, and even the pain of writing a huge check to a ghostwriter, that has helped you now
Oh,
form and
yeah.
create an incredible company
Yeah.
that is helping people who have amazing stories to tell. And the thing that makes you and your company so special, like, it's one thing to go find a ghostwriter and you guys can help somebody actually write the book. But
Yeah.
another component that I think is so important, like writing the book, as you know, is it's just a small piece of the success of the book.
It is. It's
And
everything starts after that. I
right.
hate to, most people
I,
think they're done
it's
with the writing of the book. No, no,
I
no. You're just
know.
beginning. Yeah.
And like a big part of your company is helping people get the press, the attention,
Yeah.
the platform to share their unique perspective. And so before we hopped on, you said, hey, Katie, I can talk about lead generation. And you also highlighted the fact that we're in a recession right now. We're certainly in a
Yeah.
downturn market. So what are some things that you can share with us on how somebody can maybe navigate this difficult time, specifically when it comes to lead generation?
Yeah. Well, in a general sense, I'll say this, just maybe to try to cement this. I'm a car person. I love cars. I always have. My grandparents owned gas stations when I was a kid, and they would sit me on the hood and work on cars and stuff. And so, it having a book is like owning a Ferrari. You own a Ferrari to drive it, experience it, let other people see it. It can't just sit in the garage. I mean, you could, I guess, potentially just feel good about it and let it sit in the garage. But truth be told, you're not going to benefit from it unless you actually drive it, experience it. The same is true with a book. Having a book is not the end game. The end game is getting the book into the right people's hands and then using that book to get what it is that you want. I'm a really pragmatic person. Like, I'd love to tell you, well, I wrote my book because I have this artistic sense of, I love it because of the art. And that's just not me. Generally, that's not the clients we work with. Like, it's a means to an end. A book helps you get on the map. It makes you a thought leader. can take you from unknown to like literally to the top of your field. And you and I can probably think through and name dozens of people that's the case with, even people like Dave Ramsey, who no one had ever heard of till he wrote his book, or, Keller Williams was founded on Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and on and on and on and on, from Susie Orman on down the line. These are very famous, very rich people. So I'm pragmatic. The book has to be written in such a way to attract your ideal client, and then it needs to be used in such a way to do that. And that's PR, speaking engagements, and any one of 100 ways to use it for lead gen. Anyway, that's general. We can talk more specifics as well.
Well, hop into some of the specifics, because I think people's mind immediately goes to something like running Facebook ads, which I think is a horrible place to start. So help people see there are much better ways to get going and start when it comes to getting attention for your book. So what are some ideas that you have?
Well, I'm a big fan of Facebook ads, but what I'd say about that is that's like 301. You know what I mean? That's like the advanced class.
Yes.
And I'll talk about that in a second, but number one, every single person that has a book needs to do several things as soon as they get their book. Number one, they need to send the book to every single current and past client that they have. If that's 100, you send 100 books out. It costs you $3 to print it and another $1 or $2 to send it. It costs very, very little. In fact, what you should do is to your current clients, you should send more than one book so they can pass the books on. I just did a podcast with one of our clients who's an estate planning attorney. And she did several things that I'm outlining right now. And in the first 45 days or so, that very, very simple process made her $60,000 of new clients, 60 grand. And what did she do? Number one, she sent it to all of her current clients. She sent 2 copies with a nice letter, one for them and one to give away to a friend. She sent it to all past clients because she has other things to sell to these past clients and other ways that she can help them. She sent it to ongoing prospects that she was working with, just to kind of reinvigorate the relationship. And one of the cool things that she did that we suggest is she started to think through who might be great strategic partners to work with. And she started sending her book to strategic partners. Strategic partners for her as an estate planning attorney are like financial advisors. So when someone visits a financial advisor, for the first time or the 15th time, they have a financial plan, but maybe they don't have their estate plan in place for their children and for their estate. And so that's a normal kind of next step for a financial advisor to give a copy of a book to a client that they just worked with. Hey, this is an estate planning attorney that I work with. She's a best-selling author. Here's a copy of her book. If you want to get in touch with her, I'm happy to do that. And so she set up over a period of about 45 days, 5 or 6 of these strategic partnership relationships, where she simply said, hey, just as a value add, every single person that you do a financial plan with, give them a copy of my book with this letter. No strings attached. We're not going to call them, nothing. It's just a value add. And it's a value add to the financial advisor. And of course, it's a value add to her business because people start flowing in. Now, what some authors are going to hate about what I just said is that they're not making any money on the sale of the book because they're giving it away. So some of them are going to hate that. They're going to hear that and go, no. Well, do you want $5,000 checks or do you want $5 checks? That's what you have to decide with your book. So anyway, that's 101. You got to do that with your book. Those 3 things: current clients, past clients and prospects, and strategic partners. And it'll work. It'll work like gangbusters for you.
Well, and I love what you're saying, because it's leveraging relationships that you've already built, and it's adding value. It's not it's not necessarily asking anything of people. And to your point, Facebook ads can be really effective, but they're not the first place that you need to go. It's a great way to kind of dump a bunch
Unless
of
you're
money.
already an expert. If you're
Unless
already an
you're already an
expert at
expert.
Facebook ads, then go there
Sure.
first. But if you're not, no, there are other things that you should be doing first.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I have so many questions for you, Rob, that are very personal and relevant
Yeah.
to me. I mean, you and I first met about 4 or 5 years ago. It's probably 5 years ago, Rob.
I think it is. It was in
Yeah.
Russell's group, right? It was in the inner circle.
2016,
Yeah,
2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I have written a book that
Yeah.
unfortunately is still in Google Docs, and I've shared
Yeah.
it maybe with 12 people, and all 12 of those people have said this has radically transformed my life. And yet it
Wow.
still sits in my Google Docs because I feel like it's not the right lead generator for my current business. It was relevant to my baby products company.
Yeah.
And so I still have people coming to me saying, you know, have you written a book? I want to buy your book. And I'm like, well, I need to write that book. And I noticed one of the great oppositions that pops up for me is when I hear people who have written a book, they often will say, I'm a writer, so I wrote a book. And they have that personal identity. And I have never felt that about myself. Although obviously, I mean, the one book I've written, people are getting something out of it. I mean, what can you say to somebody who feels like they have a book in their heart, but they don't see themselves as a writer?
Yeah. That is, I'm going to steal that because I've never actually heard it put that way. So thank you for sharing that. The exact person that we work with is the person that is not a writer, but that is an expert. So whether you work with a company like mine, doesn't matter. The way I would reframe it for you and for anybody listening is I am an expert, so I need to write a book. And that's really the reframe. The writing part is not what makes you an expert. Your expertise, right? Your knowledge base, the stories, the case studies, the examples you can share with the world. That is the reason for a book, not because you like to get up every day and write. So in so many ways, it's the expert that we need to hear from more than the writer. You know what I mean? Now, again, this is my non-artistic perspective. I'm not the artist writer. I am the pragmatic, get your expertise into the world writing company. And so since you're an expert, it behooves you to share your expertise with people. Now, is that going to benefit you? Of course it is, massively, but it's going to benefit a lot more people than you because they have access to your expertise. I mean, you're a reader. I'm a reader. I mean, I am always reading something new that it amazes me that I have access to these people. I'm reading a book by an Olympic athlete right now because I'm a golfer and I'm always looking for some head game stuff around golf and all this. And he works with professional golfers as a mindset coach. And I'm like, this is so cool. I get to, it's like I'm sitting at the feet of this Olympic gold medalist that's sharing his wisdom about the mental game. For $15,
I know it's
awesome.
incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So
it's
incredible.
Yeah.
So incredible.
So do it.
I know I need to. I really, really do. I want to. I mean, it's interesting as we talk about identity and how we see ourselves. I don't see myself as a writer, but I do see that I'm a really good storyteller. And maybe that's part of how I shift it as well. I
can give you a format at some point for you to follow to create content really easily that's built around storytelling. So if you want to talk through that, I'm happy to talk through that. So,
well, yeah, let's, and maybe this next question that I have goes along with this.
Okay.
Because the next objection that comes up for me is, what is like the main focus of the book? What's the core topic and subject of my book? I feel like there's so much that starts to overwhelm me. And I know there's power in really focusing and simplifying a message. And I get caught in that trap. Well, what's the one message? What's my core message? That's the other place I get stuck.
Yeah. Great question. Great point. So the way we like to tackle that, because we hear this all the time from clients, is we want to look at your ideal client, who your best clients are. if even if your best clients have multiple problems that you can solve, in most cases, they're coming to you with a singular issue that they want to deal with, or that they want or need to deal with that is most painful, like a first issue. What we suggest is really break down your avatar, really break down your ideal client, and write to solve their primary issues. It could be one primary issue, it could be 2 or 3 primary issues, but write to solve their primary issues. And then make the table of contents, make the stories, make the case studies about that thing. When you do that, when you speak their language, when you meet their need, then you're going to attract the right person to you. I know some pretty well-known writers, people that if I mentioned their names, you would know who they are, that their first book, or even their only book, was written to an audience that they don't serve and they don't want to serve.
Right.
And it was a waste for them. I mean, they're happy that it got out there, and it for a time, it was great, but it doesn't serve them any longer. And my first book was that way. I wrote my first book for the financial services industry, and I do nothing in financial services. So it's great, but I don't spend any time on the marketing and the lead generation of that book. It does whatever it does, and that's fine with me. So start with the big problems that your ideal client faces, and who it is that you love working with, that you want to attract more of, and then write to serve them.
I love what you're saying, Rob. I'm a product designer, and the way to create a product that solves a real problem, you have to reverse engineer it, right? And you have to identify the constraints, and you have to know and understand how this new idea and concept can live within reality, and attract your ideal customers and clients. And I have talked to people who have built whole businesses that were multiple millions, and they were completely miserable because they hated their customers. They didn't want to be in conversation with these people. So I had never even considered that is the starting point.
Yeah, it is. You have to think of the end game, right? And who it is that you want to work with, who it is that you want to serve. You know, I know we talked a little bit before. I know the current book that you've written, you're not serving that audience anymore.
Yes.
It is an audience that you're passionate about, though.
Yeah.
And so just getting it out into the world is not a bad thing. Now, you're probably not going to want to spend a lot of time, energy, or financial resources on it, but it probably is something that could really serve people. That's not going to be the book that makes a difference in your business and attracts you the right customer, though. And so I certainly see the lack of motivation around that.
Yeah.
So, right. It's obvious.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm grateful that I wrote that book, but it was hard. I had to wake up at 4:30 every day, and I had a 3-month-old and a significant business. It was the only time I could find to write. So I woke up every day at 4:30 for like 3 or 4 months. And I wrote out my story. And so the idea that has not come to fruition, and I have to do it again in a different area, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. But at the same time, I want to. One thing that I'm seeing as I'm talking to you is, I've been wanting to write this business book for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And as I look into the future, am I going to be okay a year from now still saying, gosh, I should write that book?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that pain of regret can be really motivating. And maybe that's where I need to focus more. Like, am I okay not having this other story of mine out there in the world?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that's probably a good place to begin. The biggest question might be, am I still going to be serving these people that I want to write this book for a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Well, how much further would I be along if I just, wrote the book and started using the book? It is a game changer. I mean, what am I going to say? I'm the book guy, right?
Right.
So I always say that because, take whatever anybody says with a grain of salt. There is a reason that we do what we do, but I don't know anything that moves the needle like a book. I just don't know anything. I mean, all things are good, right? Having a podcast, having a YouTube channel, but I don't know anything that moves the needle in multiple ways, in the practical way of lead generation, and also the kind of ethereal, people just see you different. You're
Yes.
framed differently
Yes.
with a book. And so, it just takes you so much further along on your
Right.
journey if you can just batten down the hatches and get it done.
And this is right where I'm at. Can you tell
Yeah.
us the story of one of your clients
Mhm.
where, they had something really incredible to share with the world, but the world just wasn't paying attention. And then they wrote their
Yeah.
book, and kind of what that did for their business and their career, and ultimately their message?
I can share so many.
I'm sure.
I'll start really big.
Okay.
And then I'll maybe share some smaller ones. So I've done a couple of books for Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank. And he's a great guy, a really, really smart guy. He's the, father of the infomercial. Like, he started it,
Yeah.
over $6 billion in sales. Well, what a lot of people don't know is, as the infomercial business was kind of coming to an end, which is, gosh, maybe 15 years ago now,
Okay.
probably around the time of 06, 07, 08, right around then. Because the cost of TV was going through the roof, and internet and online marketing was exploding at the same time. So you had the advertising cost to sell products, and the products were moving now more online than they were moving on TV. Well, Kevin Harrington had a $100 million a year business that had massive, massive overhead, and all
Great.
kinds of craziness. And yet it was like totally flipping. And he
Sheesh.
didn't totally know what to do at that time. He was approached to write a book, where he wrote his very first book, and which was called Key Person of Influence. And sorry, that's his second book. His first book was $1 Million Products. How to, or $100 million products or something. I think it was $1 million products at that time. Anyway, long story short, he was looking for his next thing, his next iteration. He was shutting down As Seen on TV, which was his big, he owns that trademark and that patent. And he was shutting this $100 million a year business down. Well, his book, was launched. It did well, but it wasn't like it became a Wall Street Journal or a New York Times bestseller, but it got onto the desk of Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett was starting this new thing, this new entrepreneurial show that he was going to call Shark Tank. This was in 2008, I think it was. And he read Kevin Harrington's book. He reached out to Kevin Harrington. He said, I think you're the perfect, ideal guy to get started on Shark Tank. And so Kevin became the first shark that they contracted with on Shark Tank. Of course, he was only on Shark Tank for the first 3 seasons. But by then, all of that, the fame from the book and the show kind of launched this entire new public business, which he had never had a public business before. His business was always behind the camera. Like, he was the guy that did the George Foreman grill, but no one knew that because George Foreman was the face of it. And I could go on and on. Tony Little Fitness, which did $3 billion, et cetera. Anyway, that led to Kevin, starting a multi-million-dollar a year speaking business. And then a business that now is, I don't know if Kevin is a billionaire. He's close to a billionaire if he's not a billionaire right now, because of the partnerships that his speaking engagements and his book has produced. So he went from top of the world to really, really trying, challenging times, shutting down a 9-figure business, to his book getting seen by the right guy at the right time and starting this whole new 9, almost 10-figure business. So, I know that
that's
personally.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And we've done a couple of books for Kevin, and he's a good friend and speaks at my events. And, we do some marketing stuff. So I know all the inside scoop on that story. Now, somebody may hear that story and go, well, it's Kevin Harrington. And, of course that's going to work for someone like him. Right. But he was, no one had ever heard his name in 2006, 7, or 8 until his book came out. He was behind the camera. So anyway, that's one example. I don't know if that's a good
And
one,
it
but it's
was the
one.
book. No, that
It
was
was the book.
fantastic. It was the
Yeah.
book that ended up on Mark Burnett's desk. And like,
Yes.
that was the thing.
Yep.
So
Mark
incredible.
Burnett had never heard of Kevin Harrington. He had
Okay.
no idea who Kevin Harrington
Right.
was. And it was the book that ended up on his desk that got him the gig, and the rest, as they say, is history. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hope the other thing that people are hearing also through Kevin's story is, you know, businesses, they fluctuate, and there are different environments and markets and need and demand. And we all have to do this thing called pivoting, right?
Yes.
Your story included a pivot.
Yes.
Kevin's story included a pivot. My story has a pivot. I think that's an important lesson to learn. And it also plays into that being wired for growth and, and being able to navigate the opposition and the adversity in our life. And a book helped you, a book helped Kevin.
Yeah. And it helped us at the beginning,
fantastic.
which is interesting. You know, a lot of people will say, well, I'll do the book later down the line. I'll do the book when I've already achieved a certain level. And truth be told, you know, that wasn't the case with Susie Orman. That wasn't the case with Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's worth like $700 million. When he wrote his book, he was dead broke, just came out of bankruptcy, and he wrote his first book, Financial Peace. So, I mean, you know,
at what age, by the way, like that's the other component. I think it's easy to think, I missed my chance.
Yeah, no, that's not true. Dave was, I think Dave was, I'm going to say he was mid 30s to approaching 40 when he wrote his book. For me, my first book came, early 40s when I wrote my book. So 42, I think it was. You know, I mean, I can think of so many stories. You know, we did a book for a client that this is outside of the business space, but in the raising money space. And they wanted to start a charity, a charitable foundation. It had been a dream for a decade for them to start this charitable foundation in Mozambique because of a trip they took to Mozambique in like 2005. It was a pastor and a successful business guy. And so they wrote this book. We helped them with it. We did the launch of the book. And through the launch of the book, they wrote about this story, this person in Mozambique that they met that changed their lives, who, if you know anything about the history of Mozambique, it was a war-torn country that was riddled with landmines. And actually, Princess Di, all the way back in probably the late 90s, early 2000s, made it a big cause. And they got all the landmines removed from Mozambique. But it took a decade, and many people were living without limbs because they were, over the years, they were survivors of landmines blowing up. So it's a country that needs like more prosthetic limbs than almost any country per capita on earth. And so they wanted to do this. They wanted to start this charity to provide prosthetic limbs to this war-torn country. Anyway, long story short, the book ended up on the desk of the president of Mozambique. And this is through our launch and through some of the media and the PR that we did. And he contacted the authors and he said, I want to write a new foreword to the book. So he wrote a new foreword. We republished it with his foreword, the president of Mozambique. He introduced the authors to the ambassador of Mozambique to the United Nations. And they were invited to the UN to present before the General Council of the UN. I went with them. I'm like, if you're going to the UN, I'm going to bring a film crew. This is like 4 years ago. And so they presented before, these were totally unknown guys. No, they had been wanting to do this for 15 years. They never got any traction on this at all until their book. And they presented before the United Nations. I was there, which was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And from that, they raised millions of dollars for this charity through all their relationships. They became partners with the largest NGO, non-government organization in the world, which is based out of India. We were invited to the Indian consulate. We presented before the Indian consulate. It was like this whirlwind
this component of writing a book on behalf of a charity or a nonprofit, like that's a component I hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
Of course, as a businesswoman, I'm thinking about lead generation for your
Yeah.
business, but guess what? A nonprofit also needs lead generation, and they need to
Yeah.
get in contact with the right people. And I even have clients who have nonprofits, and that's not something I had even
Yeah.
considered for somebody like that. I mean, ultimately, what I'm hearing you say is writing your book is a way to get in front of the people you need to be connected with and
Yeah.
have them take you seriously. And even better, they're coming to you. They are
Right.
coming to you,
Even
which is
better.
even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Like that's better than any Facebook ad budget could ever do, is
Yeah.
getting those people to come to you and already have interest in you, already want to talk to you, already have you positioned in their mind as an expert, which
Yeah.
is what we've been talking about today. I mean,
Yeah.
all of this to me is really resonating with me,
Yeah.
and you've been on my mind. And I think this is why. I mean, of course, I'm excited to share you with my audience, but when I reached out to you, I said, I want to get caught up. Like, let's
Yeah.
record the conversation. And
Why not?
it's
Best
been
way to do it.
really incredible. I know it is. It's the best way to do it. I really appreciate everything that you have shared. It's been really beneficial for me. I'm excited that I get to share this with the audience. I know you hinted, you shared two really significant examples, but you also hinted that you have some examples of people that got results that maybe are a little bit smaller and maybe more relatable. I don't know, but did you want
Yeah.
to share one of those before we wrapped any of it up?
Yeah. I mean, so there's a bit of a formula, right? The
Okay.
formula is you already have to have something that you're selling, that you're offering, that
Mhm.
you sell for a few $1,000s or more. And
Okay.
and the book, you said it, the book does several things. It gets you in front of the right people. It
Mhm.
gets you in front of the right people with the correct frame. And
Yeah.
it builds trust without you having to do a song and dance, for
Yeah.
people. And so, I mean, I shared the example of my estate planning attorney that we just did her book. $60,000 is, I guess, not a small amount of money, but it's also not millions and millions of dollars either. She
Mhm.
will make millions from it if she continues using it the way she's doing. But did
Yeah.
she sell 60,000 copies of her book? No. She got a few copies into the right hands of people. She sells a $5,000 thing, and she got 12 clients from it in about a 45 to 60-day period. It's not
So
that
good.
hard. It's just not. We're not talking about rocket science. My book, I do a 301 version of it, right? I use Facebook
Mhm.
ads and a free plus shipping funnel and all that stuff.
Cool.
But it's done about $4 million in the last 2 years through that funnel. And it continues
Wow.
to. Now it's sold a lot of copies and separately, but the real money has come from me using the book and putting it in front of the right people at the right time. It's that simple.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so good, Rob. I mean, I would love to keep going with you. I think our little internet interruption, it stole a couple of my minutes with you. Before we do wrap up, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Okay, hit me.
What's something that you do consistently every day?
Every single day I have the same morning routine. So I spend time in the scriptures. I walk and pray with my prayer partner, who you hear barking behind me. His name is Bob. Every single day, every single morning, we're up at 5:30. We're walking, we're thinking, we're meditating, we're praying.
Mm, I love that. I love that. So you pray and meditate on your walk with your dog.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually not one walk, it's multiple walks in the morning. But
Okay.
this morning
Okay.
we're up at 5:15, and yep, we have a first walk, which is like my gratitude walk.
Okay.
I just think about and pray about the things I'm grateful for. And then my second walk is, maybe more my practical, here are the things that, I need help with, or I
Yeah.
need to think through.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Every day.
what is, I mean, this is a difficult one to ask you because books is your business, but I'm curious if there's a book that you find yourself revisiting and you've read more than once.
Um, there are, I mean, people have already heard I'm a spiritual person, so they're probably going to know that I spend a lot of time in the Bible, and I read that regularly and have for a long time. I actually grew up Jewish, so it's not like I grew up believing in Jesus or any of that. I did not. So,
Wow.
that book changed my life in every way.
Wow.
As far as like, books that are on my bookshelf behind me,
Yeah.
I love Russell's stuff. I read .com Secrets. I spend time in it. I love stuff about mindset. And so something that I've gone back to a bunch, and I went back to this morning, was Atomic Habits. I love that book.
Love it. Yeah.
And so, I mean, there isn't one. There's multiple depending on where I'm at, I'd say.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Has there been some good advice that you've been given in your life that really helped you in a critical moment?
A lot. What is it? What would I share quickly? Probably the best advice that I've been given in difficult moments. Like thinking back to the beginning, the first story that I told about, the Great Recession and all of that. Probably the best advice was something along the lines of, this is just a season of your life. It is not going to last forever. And one day you will be grateful for this time. I was told that when I was going through the most difficult time of my life. It was advice, and it was maybe something to hold on to, a little bit of an anchor. And it was 100% true. 100%.
Love that. What is working now, Rob? What's working now?
The same stuff that's been for me, my books and my, my lead generation stuff. I mean, one thing that we do really well, as far as the business pieces, is we generate massive amounts of leads, into my business with my books and with how we use my books. And so, I don't know that it will ever stop. I guess one day it could. I'm writing a new book. I think that there does need to be a flow every year or two of new ideas, new thoughts, new subject matter. John Maxwell writes a new book every year. And it's always on leadership or something along those lines. So I'm trying to do one every couple of years. Maybe I'll eventually one every year, maybe one day.
Okay. I love it. Rob Kosberg, this has been an incredible conversation. I really appreciate the wisdom, direction, advice, even tactical advice that you have given. And I even appreciate kind of the personal coaching that you've given me.
Oh,
it's been
great
incredible.
to see you. I think the world of you, Katie, and really called higher by the things that you're doing, and moving, your family, and sounds like things are going just amazing for you guys. So couldn't be happier for you.
Thank you. And we're going to have links to your social channels, but can you share with people where's the best place to find you and your company?
Probably my book. I mean, publishpromoteprofit.com. You can go there. You can get a free copy of it. Just got to pay for shipping. Yes, it's a funnel. But it's cheaper than buying it on Amazon. So that's probably the best place to, learn a little bit more about us.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. And for everybody who's listening, this is What's Working Now.